Hey guys, Ryan Sprague here from Somewhere in the Skies, and tonight we're going to be reviewing the 1975 film, The UFO Incident, about Betty and Barney Hill. And joining me is none other than Andrew Sanford. See you on the other side.
This is Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague.
What's up, guys? Ryan Sprague here again from Somewhere in the Skies. And like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about the Betty and Barney Hill UFO incident, which surprisingly, I haven't done a full episode of the show on yet. So I thought, who better to bring in than my good friend here in New York City? He is a TV writer, a screenwriter, which we're going to talk about at the end of this episode, and just an all around amazing person. And he is skeptical of the UFO question, which is what we desperately need in this field. So it's going to be a lot of fun to break down this movie tonight and the alien abduction phenomenon with him. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Andrew, welcome back to Somewhere in the Skies.
I almost don't appreciate that you outed me as being skeptical right at the top because I've seen the YouTube comments about me before, and I don't want people to lose their faith in me right off the bat.
Everybody.
You don't have to be nice. Just don't talk about my glasses because okay, just be nice. No, Dad, do what Ryan said.
Let's rewind. I'm going to start the intro over. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm going to say hello to everyone in the chat. What is up, Cindy? We've got NFSTR Z34. What's up, Justin? Benji is here. Lisa, Grant, Skinwalker Dressing, Jason Faye. Welcome, guys. Yeah, isn't that a good one? I love that name. Skinwalker Ranch Dressing, I think.
There you go.
Did I say that wrong? I
Nice.
did. I did.
Yeah. That makes more sense.
Now I haven't become death is here. David Blaine. What? Ooh, interesting. We were just talking about magic about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. But Copperfield. No Blaine stuff.
No Blaine.
Nice try. No Blaine. Copperfield. This is a Copperfield show.
We are
I think I can say that officially. I'm wearing one of the Somewhere in the Skies t-shirts, which you can purchase at TeePublic, I believe. Still,
that is correct.
Maybe not.
Thank you.
You can get this handsome.
You're such a good model. I also have the official Somewhere in the Skies mug right here.
Oh, I love that. That looks awesome.
Thank you.
Who did that artwork?
So this was a gentleman that did a few different ones on my site. His name is Ben Scarborough. He's an incredible artist. Let me see your team. Well? He did not do that one. That was a gentleman in oh my gosh, where does he live? I believe Denmark.
This was one of the first ones too.
Yeah. That was one of my first shirts. So thank you. Thanks for
of course.
for doing that, my man. TeePublic.com, everybody.
TeePublic, Somewhere in the Skies. I thank you for having me. I am very excited to talk about this movie and to hear about the case. As I told you beforehand, you had done your due diligence and sent me all this wonderful stuff to read, which I did read a little bit of. And then I think somebody puked. And then I had to clean that up. And actually, no, I shouldn't say that. My kids, I have a 2 13-month-old twins.
Yeah, we should probably say that. You were not the one who puked.
I have children. I was not the one who puked. My wife was not the one who puked. She would appreciate if I clarified that. I did not get to read the extra stuff, but as people who may be familiar with me on this show are, I love learning stuff from you. While I may be a skeptic, while I may be somebody who needs, just not there. Just not there. I think my thing is always, I would love for something like a spaceship to show. Who wouldn't? That would be awesome. I think that's just not, I personally do not see that happening. However, I always love listening to you because you're passionate and you do your research and you talk to people and you get this, as you've always said, human perspective out of things. And I'm excited. I just thought instead of trying to read through that while I'm trying to get some kids to eat squash, which they do eat squash pretty happily. I would just wait and listen, and maybe some of the people who are watching as well may be not as familiar with the case, and they can learn along with me, and we will keep an open mind and all that good stuff. Because based on the movie, I have some thoughts.
You and me both, brother.
I have
for
a couple
sure.
thoughts, just a couple.
Well, let's see here. Now I Become Death asks, there's a Betty and Barney Hill movie. Yes. So
Yeah.
that's what we're discussing tonight. This was a made for television movie, actually. It aired on October 20th, 1975 on NBC. And yeah, this was, as I'm going to say it right now, kind of as accurate as you can come when it comes to adapting certain events for television or movies. When it comes to UFOs, a lot of people, Andrew, you included, were introduced to the Fire in the Sky movie. And that is a huge departure from what supposedly actually happened to
Right.
Travis Walton, the logger in Arizona. So far as him coming forward after the movie came out and being like, yeah, like none of that actually happened. They wanted to make a horror movie. They wanted to set it apart from other movies that had come out at the time about abductions. So they kind of straight up like went with a horror-esque aspect. And that's really not what he experienced. But with this movie, as we're going to talk about tonight, a lot of this dialogue actually comes directly from the transcripts of the hypnosis sessions that both Betty and Barney Hill went under with their abduction experience. So, I mean, we're getting like, we're literally getting it from the mouths of the people who claim that this happened. And I'm actually going to play a little later some of the audio clips from the actual hypnosis sessions, which are they're tough.
Even in the movie, they're pretty wild. Even in the movie, they're intense. There's some good, and again, that has to do. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that in this movie, playing Betty and Barney, you have Estelle Parsons, who for me, she's done a million things for me personally. Maybe for some others, I know her best as the mom on Roseanne. And James Earl Jones is in this, a younger James Earl Jones, and they're incredible, and they make a lot of stuff really work. And also, I was going to tell you this before. I would just want to get this out of the way because I'm too darn excited. The director, Richard A. Cola, directed a lot of television, and it's always like one episode, like MacGyver, Chips, Wizards and Warriors,
Miami Vice.
But he directed the original Battlestar Galactica movie.
Yes.
After this, about just a few years after this as well. And then directed probably the pilot, maybe more of the television show as well as the original TV show. So there's just it's and then with the writers, they went on to one of them wrote like Children of a Lesser God, I think. And the other one wrote a Bob Hope special. Like there's just some it's interesting to look at like a TV movie, which I even think at the time would have garnered some kind of stigma, but it eventually TV movies can be hit or miss, and see just some heavy hitters like this. Like it's I love seeing stuff like that. I love seeing people these people, almost everybody involved went on to have very solid careers, some even way more than that. James Earl Jones just had a theater on Broadway named after him. So there's just it's just awesome that all that was involved just for a TV movie on
well, I think that kind of goes to the credibility of this case. Now this is a case that a lot of people in the UFO field, when it comes to abductions, myself included, I am a skeptic believer, and I have interviewed hundreds of people who've claimed to have been abducted by aliens, but I'm not going to flat out say that I buy it, 100%. The people that have spoken to me, I believe they believe this happened to them, but did it actually happen in the reality as we know it? I couldn't tell you. But this case, Andrew, is really one that I turn the skeptics to look at and be like, huh. Because first you have this dynamic of two people. experiencing it. A lot of these cases, it's one person claiming they were abducted, kidnapped by aliens, experimented on, brought back, and there's no one else there to really corroborate the story. Here you have a couple, and we will talk about that couple in just a little bit. Under different regressions and together, but first separate, telling very strikingly similar stories, which is controversial, and I'm sure we can dive into that as well. But you did mention the writers. I do want to also add that one of the writers on the screenplay was a gentleman named John G. Fuller, and he actually wrote a book. He was the first to actually make this story go public.
Wow.
It was featured in a Boston newspaper, but this book was the first time that this story really broke and went international. And Betty and Barney Hill became like, names across the world, not just in the United States. And John wrote a book called The Interrupted Journey. And he would go on to also help write the screenplay because he was part of the original investigation of
Oh,
this
wow.
case, meeting directly with Betty and Barney Hill, garnering relationships with them. And really, they put their trust in this guy to do their story right. And the book did incredible. So much so that there eventually came this movie not too many years later.
How, like, what was the visibility like on this? I mean, I know, like, obviously it must have been pretty strong. I've got a movie made. Like, I'm trying to think of something else to compare it to that I've had experience talking to you about. Like, I think Communion was like, wasn't Communion a big seller? Like that book, and that's the one with the gray on the cover. Like, was it that kind of big? Like, was this something that everybody was kind of like, when they say like literally everybody, or was it more of like it was, it was popular?
Yeah, to an extent. Douglas Sprague is here, by the way. I just want to say hello to my father. Thanks for joining us, Dad. Appreciate you being here. Hang around, Dad. Hang around. This story gets pretty crazy. We got Winston here from Australia as well. Let's see. We got Jake here. Awesome, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
What time is it in Australia right now?
Good question. It's got to be sometime in what?
I don't feel like
Are they ahead of us or behind us?
I don't remember. I believe it's 2 days from now over there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
you're living in the future.
Mm-hmm,
You're living in the future. Grant is too here. Grant's here from Australia as
Hello.
well.
And yet I'm not getting any answers about what time it is in Australia. We've got 2 Australian
Let
people.
us know in the chat.
Nobody, because look, again, I'm not Googling unless I'm looking up the IMDb for this movie. IMDb. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Let's go with that.
What
was your question? I totally got you. Thanks, Doug Sprague. You got me all frazzled
about how
my own live stream.
Like how popular was this? Like how like are we talking like really, really huge, or was it more?
Honestly,
I know that's a tough question.
This was like the first case.
Yeah,
this was the first case. This is what put the gray alien into popular culture. The image that Whitley Strieber has on his book, that went crazy as well in pop culture. But these two were kind of the first to really bring this story forward of alien abduction.
So when you say first case, you mean the first like recorded American case of alien abduction?
Yes. To go on record and really go public. I'm sure there were others deep in the bowels of UFO history. Yeah, dude.
It did 1961. Like, even when was Roswell? 57?
47.
47? Nothing between 47 and 61, even after like that got into everybody's
right.
I would even think there would be some people that would lie about it.
Right. So we have throughout the late 50s into the 60s, we had the what is kind of coined the contactee movement. You had a lot of these space brother stories where people claimed that they were visited by aliens who would bring them on their ship and bring them to, Venus and bring them back to Earth within seconds. Or these people would go out to Joshua Tree in the middle of the desert in California and like channel in UFOs and aliens and talk to them. But this whole idea of aliens kidnapping, like unwillingly by the humans, taking people and experimenting on them, really came forward with this Betty and Barney Hill case. Yeah,
that's fascinating to me.
It's
that
pretty
it wasn't
interesting.
until I would have expected, I don't know, like even like in the early 1900s at least, like when that stuff was like popping up in pulp novels and stuff like that, like War of the World, like even around War of the World's time, nobody ever. That's so. Sorry, that's this is.
Pretty crazy, man. I know, I know. Well,
It's
and again,
wild.
like we got to think, this is 61, so we're living in the atomic age, and
Sure.
let's I guess let's kind of paint the picture.
Okay.
Um
Yes, please.
and welcome, we're featuring the New York City sirens in this episode as well. Apologies to everyone out there. 61. So we're kind of in, the throes of the Cold War. We're on the brink of a nuclear threat. Um,
Mhm.
Hopefully, that's not what's going on outside right now. Which is startling because, we're living in an age right now where the thought of nuclear threat is bigger than it's been in a long time.
Sure.
So I do wonder, are we going to see an uptick in UFOs and this idea of abductions happening again? We won't get into that. We won't get into that.
Mhm.
That's for another episode. But this idea of others
Mhm.
invading, of others having more power than us, of others uh, just doing things against our will. This is something that will play out in the Betty and Barney Hill case. So, does the
And
time period have a lot to do with this?
absolutely, because I would also say that we are very heavy in the civil rights movement at this point.
Yep.
And speaking of others and people not wanting people to get more power than they have and things of that nature, I just think that that was also on a lot of people's minds at this time, and I believe will be very relevant to to this particular,
Yes.
and especially again, at least the way the movie presented it. I do think
Right.
it. From what I read, the little bit that I did read, it seemed like uh, that is out there as well. But yeah, yeah.
So here we have the actual Betty and Barney Hill. I
Mhm.
did want to, before we get into the movie, this is them and this is the
Yeah.
actual couple. And like we mentioned, the civil rights movement, this was an interracial couple in the early 60s. So as you said, you can imagine this was not easy. They also lived in New Hampshire, so I'm sure it was even harder.
Mhm.
And that is kind of where we start this story.
Mhm.
Let's kind of, I guess, we'll start from the beginning with the movie. Let's move to our next slide here. Um, so September 1961, we kind of start the movie where, like you mentioned, Betty played by James, excuse me, Barney played by James Earl Jones, Estelle
Sure.
Parsons playing Betty. They are with their dog in the car, and they're going down this road looking for something.
Mhm.
They seem to be obsessed with trying to find a certain road that they were on where they don't remember something that had happened to them, and
Mhm.
constantly they find themselves keep going out and out to look for uh this road and try to bring back these memories of something that happened to them that they just don't seem to remember.
Right.
And that's kind of where our story starts,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it
wasn't it
starts
like
to take a toll on them.
they were driving someplace and all of a sudden they're like 15 minutes away, even though they had only just started driving?
Yes. So we
Yeah.
have what is called missing time,
Mhm.
which is a phenomenon that was coined later on by a alien abduction researcher named Bud Hopkins. And this happens with a lot of quote unquote abductees. They feel like there was time missing between something. Either
Mhm.
they black out and wake up somewhere else, or they're just missing chunks of time in their life that they cannot account for. And within those gaps in time, through such things as hypnotherapy and regression, supposedly real memories are brought to the surface of what could have possibly happened.
Right.
And that's kind of what we see play out in this movie. Betty and Barney end up going to a psychiatrist and a gentleman named Benjamin Simon and try to retrieve the memories of what happened to them. But it's rough, man. I mean, this couple
Sure.
is just like at each other's throats because they both know something happened, but they don't know what. And they
Right.
keep kind of like bickering at one another and having these really hostile arguments about, why do we keep doing this? And we got to move on with our lives and this and that and this and that. So they're like, all right, we got to talk to someone. And they end up finding this doctor.
Mhm.
And He puts them both under hypnotic regression. And lo and behold, this is where our story plays out of Betty and Barney Hill, which we'll get to. But
Mhm.
yeah, anything you want to cover before we really get into the meat of all that?
I think I'm trying to remember when they showed them having dinner with their friends. Was that before or after the psychiatrist?
Now, the movie, we should say, is a little choppy. Now, we
Sure.
don't really know. We kind of jump between timelines of, is this from the past? Is this in the
Right.
future? Is this like what's going on? So that's a little critique I have of the film is
Mhm.
I wasn't exactly sure how the story was playing out at certain times. Which could also play into the fragmented memories that they had if the
Sure. Sure.
writers and directors were really going down that route. But what you're referring to was a dinner party that they had at their home.
Mhm.
And I believe this was after the event because we really start to see
Well, no, I
the
knew it was
two
after
go at each other.
knew it was after the event. I just didn't remember if it was after they, because we're going right to the psychiatrist. I didn't want to like not bring that moment up.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah. Because that's when we get the first some of the first bits of the like racial tension going on between them.
Right.
And
Yeah.
how he says something about those white people or like the white and she gets offended that he lumped her in with these other people, these other white people. But
Right.
she is like saying that she's different. It was a really interesting. I am half white and half black. My parents are mixed, and I have always been kind of fascinated by mixed relationships, mainly because I love them. But I also know that there can be like there was a time where it wasn't easy, and I think this is a great. I think this movie shows that in a very effective way. Again, that's a lot of that is the actors involved as well, but I think it's just getting across something that coincidentally enough at the time that we were able to handle a little bit better on in like a public television kind of way. It didn't feel forced, it didn't feel hokey, it didn't feel like a movie of the week, it didn't feel watered down. Like it felt like a very real conversation that they were having. And I think she did that very well. I think everybody in that scene handled that very well. But I just love that. Like, and again, like I do think there's a little bias on my part, I guess, but there's also just this idea that I do think that's what the movie is pushing at the end of the day, because I think it's one of the scenes that it even slightly illustrates the movie's bias towards this being a shared hallucination from the two of them, brought on by possibly brought on by an incident or like a hate attack, like
Yeah.
a hate crime or something like that, but also or just the pressure between the two of them building and building and building and just kind of exploding at the same time, and then maybe some kind of shared psychosis like Randy Quaid and his wife. So that's
Yeah. Not to make light of it, but yeah, that was
no,
a good
yeah.
comparison for sure.
Sorry.
No. I want to thank
They're nothing.
Danina.
Yeah, Randy Quaid wishes.
Yeah, right. I know. Oh God, what is up with that guy? Where is he even anymore? In a bunker somewhere,
I think he
most
was going to run
likely.
for office somewhere, but I don't
Oh
think it panned out.
God. Please no. Dania, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate that.
Thank you,
Super
Dania.
chat is open, guys, too, if you want to help out the show. Put your comments up here. We'll answer your questions the best
Mhm.
we can.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
well, okay.
before you ask again, yes, the shirt I'm wearing is available at tpublic.com.
I love you.
tpublic.com/ somewhere in the skies.
I love you. Well, okay.
What do you think
So
about
let's talk about they go to their first session,
that?
hypnosis session.
Mhm.
Let's see if I have a slide for that.
Which I already
Um,
no, nothing more reliable than hypnosis.
yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Let's
Oh
talk about
yeah.
that. So we have Benjamin Simon, played by a gentleman by the name of Bernard Hughes, very well-known stage actor and film actor as well, and does a great job of playing this psychiatrist
Absolutely.
who is extremely skeptical
Pardon me, again, the
about what
twins.
is eventually uncovered in these. But yeah,
Sure. No, and again, not a bad actor in the bunch. Like this is all everything. This movie is really well made. T to B. Like there's a lot of good stuff going on.
yeah, yeah. So I guess what we can do is let's talk about the meat of um, Barney's first hypnotic regression. This is where I think James Earl Jones really shines in these hypnosis scenes.
Absolutely. There's when
Yeah.
he starts to when he's trying to grab for his gun or where he's just like when he's just like terrified. There's also something I'll say exciting because I can't think of another word, but it's also like kind of frightening and it's just like I guess titillating maybe. I don't know.
Mhm.
But he's a big dude, and to see somebody that big get that scared is scary. Like there's an extra
Yeah.
impact to that. You're seeing somebody who's afraid who you'd think could take out a whole room full of aliens if he needed to. Like it's I don't know, like it's just that's a big even at one point like he was walking around shirtless and I looked over at my wife. I was like, this man was a beast. Like he was huge. I think he was like 39 when they made this, something like that. But
Yeah.
I just yeah. So that those scenes were so effective, and again, it didn't feel hokey or weird. It didn't feel like it felt very honest, and they really felt afraid during that. Both of them during both their like it's. I think that's what helps make the movie successful to begin with. It's also I can see why the case is so alluring as well, not just on a uh, extraterrestrial level, but on a human level. Like
Right.
you feel for these people because no matter what, they're going through something.
Yeah.
Even if whether it's real or not, there's something wrong, and
Yeah.
neither of them are. Once it's really brought up to the surface, neither of them are really ready to handle it, and it's. I'm sure everybody's had something like that in their life.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. And so I guess with Barney, the hypnosis brings out kind of the beginning of the encounter.
Hmm.
Now they hear this weird beeping noise, they see these lights over their car, and then they stop and they see a craft come down from the sky and these beings coming out of the forest towards them. And I actually, Andrew, now, like we mentioned, a lot of these hypnosis scenes were actually from the transcripts from the hypnosis sessions that were recorded and are available to the public. And I would highly suggest if you haven't seen this movie, go watch James Earl Jones deliver this monologue.
Yeah, and look, it's an hour and a half. It's on YouTube for free. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
nothing to lose. And again,
You got nothing to lose.
it's not boring by any stretch of the imagination. Like,
Right.
there's
Now, have you
gripping.
it is. Have you heard the actual tapes?
I have not.
Okay. I'm going to play a partial section from Barney's first hypnosis session when he saw the beings. And I want to get your thoughts on the other side after you hear this. All right.
Cool. All right.
Cool.
What did he tell you? Stay there and keep looking. Just keep looking and stay there. And just keep looking. Just keep looking. Could you hear him tell you? Oh, I gotta pull these binoculars away from my eyes. Because if I don't, I'll just keep staying there. Could you hear him tell you this? Oh, no, he didn't say it. You felt he said it. I know. You know he said it. Just there, yeah. Just stay there, he's saying to me. It's all right. Bouncing in my head. Just don't pull the binoculars away. God, give me strength. All right. Pull them down. Run! Pull these binoculars down and run. God! It says my God, give me strength. I gotta get away. Oh! Betty! All right. You gotta get away, Betty! All right. Calm down. I'm driving. I gotta get away.
Yeah. So, initial thoughts. I mean, just hearing that one section.
As we had said at the top, um, my mind is usually one that tends to go towards skepticism.
Mhm.
Eh, to me, to see, to hear I have heard that tone, I have heard that terror, I have heard that horror before, and it can come when you are, um, when somebody does something to you based something harmful, something hurt, and that is racially motivated.
Mhm.
And this, we're in 1961. They're driving down the middle of a highway. If I had to guess what probably happened, if I thought, because my mind would not go to aliens, is that somebody probably stopped them and did something to them that they mentally could not reckon with, and both
Hmm.
came up with it. Because I do hear that terror in his voice, but I don't. That doesn't immediately scream alien to me. And
Mhm.
again, like if that's the story that they're telling, and they were the ones that were there, and it's always something where, like, I'm never calling bullshit necessarily. I think it's just I think there is probably a more likely explanation, and I think it's something that happened to a lot of people back then, especially people who dared cross that racial line.
I get it. I understand. Now let's. I guess. Well, that's a good way to kind of this up. Let's just play Betty's section
Mhm.
as well. Now you can see in this
And
image
I
here.
might need another detail filled in for me too, because
Sure.
because something I was having a hard time with in the movie itself was the flaming car, or the car with the flames on it that was like chasing after them. It seemed
Okay.
like
Yep. Yep.
what
Yep.
was what was that? Is that in reference to something that happened, or is that
So in the beginning of the film, uh we get this weird choppy scene, which actually was very when I realized what it was very startling.
Mm,
It's a group of like greasers. It's like
right?
straight up greasers,
Yeah.
white teenagers in their
Mm,
car, and
hmm.
they saw this interracial couple drive by them,
Right.
and their immediate reaction is to get in their car and start chasing
Right.
after them and
Right.
giving them shit about it. Um, and as this is happening, Betty is actually having snippets like remembrances
Right.
of aliens chasing after them. So
Right.
that was pretty effing terrifying, and also goes exactly to your point.
Right.
We don't know what's up from left, excuse me, up from down, left from right,
Right.
white teenage greaser or alien,
Right.
which
Yeah.
I think really
Exactly.
plays into what you're saying.
Yeah, like that, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, and hearing that explanation of it, it almost sounds like, oh, somebody is committing a hate crime against her, and she's, because of it, is remembering this other hate crime that happened, which she has since cloaked in an alien abduction. I think that's where my mind goes with that, and I apologize to anybody who came here for something a little bit more lighthearted.
I know.
Because
Well, I mean, that's
I just
we
it's
can
just
have
on
fun, but
analysis.
this is
Yeah,
not a fun story.
no, it's
Again,
really
this is
not.
very traumatic no matter what happened. I mean,
Yeah,
look at her face.
yeah,
I
man. Oh,
mean,
she crushed it.
something happened to these two.
Yeah. Hmm.
I want to talk a little about before we play her audio. Um the aliens that are shown in the movie.
I thought they looked
Now,
great.
oh my god,
They
man.
had
Like look at
shadows.
these things. They're
Some,
so vapor wavy and
yeah.
like simple,
I
and I
love the
just
big eyes,
love
the big weird eyes. Like those are
ugh,
great. And look,
it's amazing.
sometimes it's all about what you don't show. Like they're covered in shadow for a good chunk of it. Like I thought that was really effective.
I thought they did a great job with the
Yeah.
practical effects. I mean, no
Yeah.
almost no very early computer generated effects in this movie. They built that
No.
spaceship. They
Yeah.
built this set. I mean,
Yeah.
that forest looks like it was built in a studio, which I love. Look at
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
fake moon too.
Yeah.
It's so like simple, and it reminds me of like a comic book almost.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I know. Like I said, there's a lot of good craft that went into this. Like it's just I'm interested to hear more about the actual case. We'll put it that way. Like
Right.
because yeah.
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 Well, let's see here. Now I am become death asks what initially triggered the belief it happened in the first place. Again, I think it was in the movie really shows
The
us it
hypnosis,
is
right?
the hypnosis,
Yeah.
and also just this feeling, this void in both of them
Hmm.
of they came home. We should mention this. They come home the night that this event supposedly happened, and Betty's dress is ripped and torn, and Barney's shoes are all scuffed up, and they've got like weird marks on them, and they just don't remember. They don't remember what happened, or they didn't want to remember what happened,
Right.
which again is what we've been alluding to all night so far. But yeah, that was what kind of initially triggered them to reach out to a psychiatrist and then try to unravel these memories.
Mhm.
And then with Betty, her first hypnosis is like extremely uh,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
vivid, and we see this one image up there at the top of the aliens kind of doing weird tests on her and stuff.
Hmm.
And you know what? Let me play the audio, Andrew, because that's kind of where I think I got the clip is when she's talking about what happened once they're on the craft.
Sure.
Now they're dragged into this craft, and Barney goes one way, Betty goes the other, and they don't even really know what happens to one another during this. So let's go ahead and play this small clip of Betty's actual abduction experience, according to her.
And the examiner has a long needle in his hand, and I see the needle, and it's bigger than any needle I've ever seen. And I asked him what he's going to do with it, and he said just a simple test to won't hurt me. And I asked him what, and he said he just wants to put it in my navel. And it's just a simple test. And I told him, no, it will hurt. Don't do it. Don't do it. And he said, no, it won't hurt. And he sticks a needle into my navel. And he says, I'll be all right. I won't feel it. And all the pain goes away.
Again, like
Mhm.
it's hard to listen to this, no matter what happened. But I mean, what do you think? What do you think after hearing that?
That she was likely sexually assaulted and whatever
Okay,
happened to them. It's hard to hear it any other way, personally. Like, and I think again that they just
yeah,
had a really hard time dealing with it. That Hi Robert, I'm glad you're here. That they had a real hard time dealing with it. Even saying that it's something like that happening to her belly button almost feels like changing up a slight detail, like almost
right,
like in a way to make it feel better for herself as to what happened to her.
right.
Um, and
Boy, oh boy,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
this
I
is
mean,
tough,
even the
man.
language, even with what the guy is saying to her in the moment, like it won't hurt, don't worry about it. Like it's not, you won't feel anything. Like it just all feels too familiar, unfortunately. And I know that there's a possibility for the brain to just not, to kind of like shut down to protect you from things like that when things like that happen to you.
Yeah,
It like, and I didn't even really pick up on it as much, or that aspect of it. No, I think when I was watching the movie, I thought, I was like, is this some kind of like abortion thing? Did she maybe have an abortion and couldn't deal with it? Or
mm,
but then no, like especially hearing her there on the recording, I'm like, I think something else happened.
I understand. Now this is what a lot of skeptics turn to in terms of the alien abduction phenomenon. These are memories of childhood trauma, of sexual
Mhm.
abuse, of you know, anything to put a mask over what actually happened. And I completely understand what you're saying. And my only, not even defense, what I want to do, Andrew, is because I understand everything you're saying, and
Mhm.
it could very well have been a situation like that. But there is a lot of evidence that has been brought forward about you know, kind of what happened
Does
and
somebody
things
have the
that
book? Did
I
somebody end up
mean,
getting their hand on the book?
let's talk
Mm.
about that. So Betty says that these aliens, when she was aboard the craft, that they
Mhm.
gave her a book that would explain who they are, where they come from, why they're doing what they're doing, and a lot of this stuff.
So interesting.
They kind of like they kind of, slide it over to her and be like, all the answers are right here. And then they're immediately like, psych,
Yeah,
like, take
actually,
it back.
we
And she's
talked
like,
about it,
no,
and yeah.
this is the only way that I can prove that this happened. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And the other big thing was they showed her this star map of
Yes,
where they are
yes.
from and where we are in
Mhm.
relation to them. And I thought this was pretty funny in the movie and in the actual hypnosis session. She says that the alien said, "Do you know where you are on this?" And she's like, "No, not really. There are people on my planet who know where all the stars are and planets
Mhm.
and stuff, but I'm not really one of them. So you probably
Mhm.
picked the wrong person." She's like, "But where are you guys from?" And the alien's straight up like, "If you don't even know where the hell you are on this map, you're not going to understand where the hell we're from. So we're not even going to bother with this. You're wasting our time putting you back in your car," sort of situation.
So I will say that was a detail that piqued my because she redrew the star map. Yes.
Yeah.
And
So yeah,
but
let me
now
get to
here,
that actually.
because my
Yeah, go ahead.
question
Go
that
ahead.
is like, is there a specific way to draw us? Like, is there a format for a star map? Oh, this was her drawing.
So her drawing is on the top left.
Uh
After hypnosis, this is the sketch she came up with of what she
huh.
remembered. And that was in 1963.
Right.
Astronomers in 1969 discovered this star cluster near Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2. And just look at how similar it is.
Yeah.
And most of those stars were not discovered until years later.
Right.
So this is something that a lot of people turn to and be like,
Hmm.
huh, like how the
It's
hell could she have known that?
look. No, that's I to me that's more like the fun stuff. Because this is there's really is no like there's no good way to explain
Right. Right. Like
that.
how do you and I'm sure there are skeptics out there who can explain it away somehow. Like
Sure.
maybe she had some knowledge of it beforehand or
I was about to say, was she perchance college educated?
I believe so. I mean, she was an extremely intelligent woman. So was
Mm-hmm.
Barney was also extremely intelligent.
Because
He had like a crazy IQ from what I recall.
I'm
Um,
realizing now that I
yeah.
don't really know much about their lives before all this, aside from the fact that they're both divorced.
Yes. So they were both divorced. A Betty grew up in New Hampshire. Her entire family for over a
Yeah, she got that
century.
accent. She got a little
Yeah.
bit of the New
It's
Hampshire.
crazy, dude. Estelle Parsons knocks it out of the park too. Almost to
Yeah.
the point where you can't understand some of it.
Yeah.
Um, Reminds me of another person from Massachusetts who's going to be featured in an upcoming episode of Somewhere in the Skies.
Hey, that
Might be
wasn't my
teasing a
best.
little
Yeah.
something, something there.
Hmm. Maybe.
Cindy says, "Didn't scientists recreate?" Never mind, Ryan's on it. Yep, we got you.
Ryan's
We
always
got you,
on it.
Cindy. Pinzer says, "Makes a lot of sense. Good points." I think talking about what you were saying, Andrew. But yeah, so the star map is definitely one of the more convincing aspects to all of this. There's a few other things that, if you want, we can jump to in
Sure.
terms
Yeah,
of.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, because
Cool,
like
let's
I
do it.
said, I think people should check out the movie. I think, but I also think like I think we've gotten into all that we can really get it. We talked about the aliens. Aside from that, it's just kind of rehashings of the case. So I would love to hear more about the case itself and
Yeah,
ask some questions on my own while I
please.
bite
Yeah.
this small piece of Twizzler that was on my desk. All right.
So here we have the University of New Hampshire actually set up an exhibit at their school about this incident. It did make, you know, New Hampshire on the map. It put them on the map when it comes to the whole alien thing. And what you see here is
Do they still have that up?
I believe so.
Hmm.
It might still be up there. That is the actual dress. If it isn't, if I am mistaken, someone might correct me. It is a replica. The bust is of the alien that she supposedly saw. You've got a few other things in there, a sketch that she did, some letters, I'm sure, that were about the case. But this is pretty interesting. The school thought it
Yeah.
was credible enough to make this. Um, let's see what else they have. I think I have a little section on that here. This is in the Diamond Library. And
Ooh.
yeah, it's got journals, essays, newspaper clippings, slides, films, audio tapes, all relating to this case. And
Did she
the
go to the
dress.
University of New Hampshire?
I don't know that. I don't know. Someone in the chat might be able to fill us in on that. But yeah. I'm not too sure about that. But the dress, let's talk about that for a little bit. This was another piece of evidence. Apparently, after the night that this event happened, Andrew, she thought, you know, something's going to come of all this. I know something happened. Maybe I'll figure it out. I'm not doing anything with the dress. And she kind of rolled it up. And you see this in the movie too. Rolled it up in a ball and put it in the closet. And, you know, didn't really bring it forward until people started asking for evidence of what happened.
Right.
And she brought out the dress, and it had, when they did like tests on it, they found some sort of substance on the dress that could not be explained. They had Ohio State, I believe, look at it. Their scientists. They had police look into it. Other scientists as well. And there was some sort of residue on the dress that could not be explained in terms of a earthly explanation. And if you don't mind, last clip I'm going to show, I promise.
No, please.
Okay. While we're on evidence, I'm going to show a clip of Kathleen Martin, who's actually the niece of Betty and Barney Hill. And she's kind of taken the reins on the case and kept it alive and kept the legacy of her aunt and uncle alive too with this thing. And she's done an investigation on it herself. But I actually found a clip of her talking about the dress with a local news station, I believe either in the UK or Australia. But let me go ahead and play that.
Still
now.
don't
This
know
is
what time it
Kathleen
is in
Martin.
Australia, listeners.
Let us know. Grant, you're in the
Okay.
chat. Let us know.
Yeah,
buddy.
people in the chat. That's gonna mean nothing to hear the people who hear this as a podcast.
Betty's dress was torn in several locations. There was a 2-inch tear in the zipper fabric, the stitching at the top of her dress, a 1-inch tear in the thick zipper fabric. The dress was torn from waist to hemline, and the hem was torn down on one side. It indicated that something had happened that Betty could not remember. It had been in fine condition when she put it on that day. She folded the dress up when she arrived home and put it in her closet, knowing that she would have to repair it. The next time she took the dress out, it was covered with a pink powdery substance, not the entire dress. Some of it remained blue, but the pink powder discolored the fiber in the dress and degraded the fiber.
Did you have it analyzed? What was it?
It is one of the pieces of concrete evidence. It has been analyzed in at least 5 scientific laboratories to date. And the finding is anomalous. They have found proteins on the dress. They have found oils on the dress. They know that they did not belong to Betty. The dress is most deeply saturated with the pink substance in the areas where Betty stated that these non-human entities actually touched
But is
the dress.
it of this planet?
They were not able to determine whether or not this was of this planet. Certainly some of the material on that dress was. There was dirt, there was bacteria, there were those sorts of things that would be on any article of human clothing, particularly after it had been sitting in a closet.
So, yeah. I mean, that's Kathleen Martin, the niece, talking about it. They found this pink residue that couldn't be explained. And there also, people in the chat are mentioning, I did not mention this, and this was not talked about in the movie. There were marks on their car. There were radiation tests done on the car, which I
no, they mentioned the marks on the car in the movie.
Did they?
I
must
on
have
the back
missed
of the
that.
car. I think, or
Yeah.
she's but they mentioned something being on the car.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I love how subtle the New Hampshire accent is. It's almost like a Massachusetts accent, but it only comes at no. I appreciate that she's still doing that, and I also think like the stuff I love, like physical evidence when it's something that can be with it that's kind of like hard to explain.
Mhm.
Like because again, rips and tears in a dress, it could just go along with the things that we've mentioned already. Once you add
Exactly.
in an unknown substance on there, things start to at least get a little bit muddier. Was it a substance on the back of the car, or just like
I
was
believe it
there
was
with the
like
marks?
physical markings. I don't know if any
Hmm.
sort of if it was some sort of residue or something like that, but I do recall, and again, correct me in the chat, guys. I'm not an expert on this case. I can fully admit I haven't looked into it as much as others. I believe they did like Geiger counter tests, and they did find trace amounts of radiation higher than normal on the
Well,
back of the car.
she does that with the compass in the movie.
Yes, that too. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
starts
yeah, yeah.
spinning out of
Because she
control.
said she has one of my favorite lines, which is my sister said the compass is basically like a Geiger meter. Because you just kind of you talk about those things with your siblings.
Yeah,
I think
just
it was
comes up
sister.
naturally.
I could be misquoting that, but it was just kind of so funny to me. I was like, somebody casually told you that a compass works like a guy. Hey, okay, zombie saint, look.
Look,
Okay,
look, look.
y'all,
We got a
look. I
time. We got a
we
time.
got a time. We got a time. 12:19. Thank you, Grant.
Grant. Wow,
Thank
it's
you,
getting late. Thanks for
Grant.
being here, man.
Wow. Well, no, it's 12. It's like noon.
Or
12:19
noon.
noon.
Oh, there we go.
Come on.
There we
Yeah,
go.
no, Ryan. Australia is
Ugh,
3 hours or an hour, 2 hours ahead. What are you doing? What are you doing,
my
Ryan?
math is
What are you
horrible.
doing,
I'm
Ryan?
sorry, guys. It's getting late over here on the East Coast too.
Thank you,
Says
Grant.
the guy
Grant.
with not twins and has to be up in the morning
Hey,
to
look.
work like
All that
you do.
matters right now is Grant is my favorite Australian, and I've met Hugh Jackman. So,
I did too. I actually met him 2 weeks ago. I'm working at Music Man on Broadway, and
that
he's
was a
doing
lie.
the
I've never
same
met Hugh
thing.
Jackman.
He hands out lottery tickets to
On
employees
Fridays?
at the theater. Yep.
On Fridays?
Sundays now.
That's
Sundays now.
amazing. What a cool
Yeah, yeah,
dude.
yeah.
What a cool
He is an
dude.
awesome dude.
Mhm.
Wow, that we got off track there.
I don't even remember where we were. I'm just so happy to know what time it is in Australia.
Yep. The biggest mystery of this episode has been solved. We're done. Good night, everybody. Good night.
And I too. Well,
Let's
we got nothing in
I guess
common.
Andrew, because again, man, I don't want to keep you too long. Again,
Oh no. So
you've
let
been
me see
gracious with your time.
if I
What?
have any
Yeah. What questions do you have?
questions. I guess so. We know that he died of a stroke, and she mentions a stroke earlier on in the movie, but the line kind of like went over my head. Was there ever an implication that she predicted his death?
I
'Cause
don't believe so, but we do
okay,
see in the film that Barney Hill is constantly thinking about his mortality.
yeah,
Again,
absolutely.
is this has to do with he was depressed after this event happened. He had these thoughts of like a nuclear fallout from the Cold
Mm-hmm,
War happening.
mm-hmm.
He thinks he's going to have a stroke because it runs in the family, and he, as we find out at the end of the film, was right. He died at the
Yeah,
age of
pardon my
46,
French.
unfortunately, of a stroke.
Oof, oof.
Died in
Just awful.
1969. And then, I mean, look at this portrait of of Betty. I mean, 85 years old she lived
Mm-hmm.
to, and
Yeah,
she was still
yeah,
smoking that cigarette, dying of
yeah.
lung cancer, which
Oh, is
she
that
would
how she
eventually
died?
die of. Yeah, in
Oh, oh,
2004.
oh, awful,
Um, it is,
awful.
it is. But I mean, dude, until her dying day, she stuck to this story,
Yeah,
which is interesting. It's
sure.
interesting, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I guess I don't have as many questions as I thought. Like the tapes kind of make me feel one way, but I also like people. Was there anybody in particular that publicly like came out to rebuke this? Anybody
Oh
of that
yes.
time? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now you have Carl Sagan famously tried to debunk the star map at one point. I
Whoa.
believe that's something people would have to look up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
He sort of had an explanation for that, but
Huh.
also there was another famous skeptic at the time named Philip Klass who didn't believe any UFO sightings were legitimate and everyone was crazy and kooks and stuff like that. So he obviously would hop to these abduction cases and be like, "See, these are the psychopaths, or these are the crazy people making
Right.
this stuff up."
Right.
But yeah, there was a lot of detractors, as there should be. But one thing I do want to mention, actually, I totally forgot about this, and we got a small part of it in the movie. Benjamin Simon, the psychiatrist, he meets. This is hilarious. He's at like a beach with a dude
I
in
loved
full
that scene.
uniform from the U.S. Air
Yeah.
Force.
Yeah, I loved that scene.
That
That
was
was great.
hilarious.
He
It
was
was
like,
a good
"Well, I need
scene,
some
though.
information." It was good, but it was just kind of. It was. You're right. It's like I called my old buddy from the high-ranking member of the Air Force to just tell me if this could have possibly been a UFO. I
Yeah.
liked. I liked seeing the psychiatrist like kind of do his due diligence. I was like, he's just kind of like,
Well, and you mentioned this. This film is not out to convince you this happened and this was aliens.
not at
They
all.
actually did the opposite, which I
Which was
really
really,
appreciated.
yeah, it was really refreshing because there's
Yeah.
even with the way that they present it, which I do think has a heavy bias towards it being some sort of hallucination or something.
Hmm.
They are still they the things that they are presenting are still terrifying, and they are still like, you want to believe, because Estelle Parsons is a wonderful actor, you do want to believe this woman. Like
Yeah.
that's as I think can be the hard thing with a lot of this kind of stuff. You want to believe them, you know?
Exactly. As the
Um
famous X-Files poster says.
yeah. So here's a question for you. Were there, because I thought the book was an interesting detail, but then now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's not as like unique as I took it as. But were there, if this was the first, were there like copycats? Were there people who like basically kind of said like almost the same thing happened to them?
Wow, what a
Or
great question. Yeah, I mean, this was like the OG story.
sure,
So you start hearing after this happens and this comes forward, dozens and dozens of people claiming the same thing. We saw the same beings, the same thing happened. We were kidnapped and brought on the craft. So again, chicken and egg scenario. Are these people
right,
telling the truth, or who was inspired by what? And I should mention, Andrew, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, but Betty Hill did have a history of being interested in UFOs prior to this incident.
what, what, what? Oh, that blows the whole that.
I had to put you full screen for
Of
that.
course, she knows how to draw a friggin' star map. Then what? How interesting?
Well, I wouldn't go. I
Well,
wouldn't
okay.
go
So
that far.
how
I
interesting?
can't draw an effing star map, and I've been studying
And
UFOs for half my life.
whose fault is that, Ryan? Um,
My parents, Doug Sprague, who's in the chat, didn't sign me up for
kids today,
Star Map 101.
no work ethic. If it was 1961, you would have been drawing star maps all over the place.
So we have to acknowledge that she did have an interest in it.
I will say, I would need more detail on that. Otherwise, I would strike it. That is something I would need to know. Like, look, anybody could be interested in something. But is this something that, like, that being said, my threshold is very low. Like, if she's read like one book, everything is disqualified.
I understand that. And again, but at the same time, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Like, you can have an interest in this topic and still have a legitimate
No,
experience. A lot of
oh,
people could argue that too. But
absolutely. And
it doesn't help. It does not help the
No.
situation.
It doesn't, and I would be sooner to dismiss it now than I would then. And the reason I would say that is because now I feel like it is more, our pop culture has been more saturated with UFO stories and UFO things. Like it's harder to not, Doug, but
Doug.
it's harder to not know what a UFO is at this point. So I would almost like, that's where I would have to be like, there you go. Okay. Fair, Robert.
That's fair, Robert. Also, sorry, Andrew. I just wanted to say thank you to Mark for the super sticker, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
He's
thanks,
a huge
Mark.
supporter of the show.
Oh, thanks, Mark. So, oh shoot, so I totally lost my train of thought there.
Just this kind of preconceived interest in UFO.
Like, so yeah, so I think but I think back then, especially for it being them to be so few and far between, it's almost like, oh, I'm gonna break new ground here. Like, we're gonna get attention this way. Well, no, and I'm sorry, I don't want to say that, because I do think these people went through something genuinely horrible. I do really believe that something bad happened to them.
Yeah.
I just don't think it was UFO related, but I
Okay.
do believe that something. It's their like, for what it's worth, I do believe they went through something horrific.
Totally understandable.
Oh, is that
You
on
know,
the actual highway where it happened?
yes, that's where it happened. They
Oof,
have this
man.
marker there that you can go see. They're very proud of
Sure,
this event, as many
sure.
small towns are
Yeah.
of UFO events. You know, Roswell has a festival every year. Flatwoods Monster in West Virginia. Hopkinsville Goblins, which I think you and I talked about at one point. They've
Yeah.
got like a little
Oh,
marker
yeah,
for
that's right.
that.
Yeah.
This can make a town, these events.
Yeah,
So
sure.
of course they're gonna embrace it. You know, if it brings people in and brings tourists in, all the power to them. I
Yeah.
think it's great to do something like that. A lot of people think it's exploitation, but hey, you know,
Look.
we live in a capitalist society. That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna say.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. Let's see. Grays are not chill. Someone said, yeah, they are not. They are
Nah, they
the
are
scary aliens.
grays are sus, if anything.
I love this. Steven says, if I get abducted when I wake up, I'm going to say, I'm from Detroit. Give me the keys and no one gets hurt. Gonna land the ship on Ryan's lawn.
Man,
Steven, thanks, man.
good luck finding a lawn in New York City.
Yeah, yeah.
Queens, you might have a little bit more luck.
Not as much as you would think, but yeah, let's see. What is this comment here? Skinwalker Ranch dressing. I really want to see a parody of people being interviewed and looking crazy for regular daily experiences. He was outside my house touching things. Insert blurry photo of guy turning off the gas.
Like Skinwalker Ranch dressing, just as a one pro tip. When you get a pitch that hot, man, you keep it to yourself. You don't put
You
that
got
out
it. I
there.
know. I'm
You
stealing
don't put
it.
that. You go make that. You go make that.
You're talking to two
Skinwalker
writers
Ranch.
here. Our job is to steal.
Whoa. Ryan is not speaking for me on that one.
Oh no. I'm just kidding. It is not. It's not, guys. We don't steal. We don't steal.
Oh,
We
God.
borrow, and we are inspired by. What else do I have here? Oh, I met Kathleen Martin at a UFO
Oh,
event,
nice.
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a little photo of me here with her and Dr. Lynn Katai as well. She's another woman in the UFO field who saw the Phoenix Lights incident, Andrew. I don't know if you're familiar with that case
I
back
am
in
not.
97 or 96. One of those 2 years, 97, I believe. She took some crazy video of a huge UFO event that happened that thousands of people saw. But yeah, I got to meet Kathleen Martin and talk to her all about her aunt and uncle in this case. And look, man, she believes it. She,
Sure.
of course, sticks by her family and has done a lot of investigation. So all the power to her.
Yeah, no, there's
for
something
doing
very
that.
noble about that. I can't
Yeah,
can't be mad
yeah,
at it.
absolutely, absolutely.
I don't know.
I think really the only thing left to talk about, I guess, would be Project Blue Book, the official U.S. Air Force investigation unit, did look into this case, and
Interesting.
yeah, I think that's what that scene in the movie kind of represented.
Sure.
The one where the Air Force guy on the beach, where was that?
Yeah.
Talking to his buddy Benjamin Simon, that yes, the Air Force does look into UFOs, and there's a 5% that we can't explain and that we need to look further into. And this guy even says, we looked at the Betty and Barney Hill thing and we can't
Mm.
explain it. We can't come up with a conventional explanation. But what I found really interesting, this was not in the movie. The US Air Force did track a UFO on radar the same night that this event happened, in the
Hey.
same exact location where they said this
Whoa.
event happened. Tracked on radar.
Whoa.
That's a mic drop, I think, in terms of convincing evidence that
Wow.
something happened. There was at least a UFO there. And we
Huh.
have to remember, Betty and Barney Hill only remembered having seen something in the sky
Well, I
originally.
think somebody said, and I think somebody said in the chat they remember the abduction, but not the UFO, or like being on the UFO, but not like seeing it or anything like that.
I think it was actually the opposite. They did
Oh.
remember seeing the UFO. They did not remember the
Oh,
abductions
maybe I
until
read it
after
wrong.
hypnosis.
Sure.
I'm wrong.
No, I said maybe I probably read it wrong then. is
Oh,
what I
okay.
said. Yeah,
I
no,
don't
I'm
know.
wrong.
Someone correct us in the chat. But either way, there
I
was
know.
a UFO
I think
tracking
that's
alert. And
That's
again, like,
interesting.
did Betty and Barney
How
Hill somehow know about that? And then they were like, oh, we can use this to our advantage to create this, concoct this story. There was a UFO,
or
there's documentation. I don't know.
or and allow me to play devil's advocate to my
Do
side
it.
a little bit right now. When did the Air Force reveal that they spotted a UFO that night?
I don't know. I don't know. I
I
apologize. I
would
don't know.
no, it's okay, it's okay. I would just love to know when that happened, because if I was a government agency that was trying to keep people focused on stuff like that, corroborating a story like that every now and then might keep people invested and keep it, because it's like it's big. They're not saying they didn't say anything directly. They don't have to claim like responsibility for it or anything. It's almost like the perfect kind of like
Right.
tugging along, like, or like a little poke, just like, oh, what a coincidence, like they had this very part that was publicized and we just happened to I don't know, I think we may or may not have just absolutely spotted a UFO like in that same area that same night. That's crazy. Like, I don't know, moving on. Like,
Good
I
point.
just
Hey,
and
I mean,
again,
yeah, it could have been Russian. It could have been a Russian spy satellite, could have been a top secret US
mhm,
aircraft. And when they heard that this interracial couple was going around telling people they were kidnapped by aliens, there's your cover story right there. That's going to keep people
yeah.
thinking all that stuff. And meanwhile, look this way while we do this on the other. I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
It's also one of those things where I just I want to make sure I have this date. Yeah. Just to make it like very clear, like how fraught it was to be in an interracial marriage in 1961. The Loving v. Virginia case hadn't even happened yet.
Mm,
Like that's not until 1967. So interracial marriage was still like essentially outlawed in a lot of places. So
right.
like it's just not, yeah. So it's just not great, not great.
Yeah.
So
It's a good
but
point.
anyway, but again, that UFO stuff is mighty. That's a mighty big. That's a lot.
Yeah, I again, like there is some interesting evidence to this case, and a lot of
Mhm.
people still turn to it as one of the most documented and credible cases. But there's a lot working against it too. I mean, like you said, a lot of what this sounds like was some sort of probably racially ignited assault on both of them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Being dragged around, scuff marks on Barney's clothes, ripped dress on Betty, like, and not wanting to remember and this and that. Like, it
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does. I'm not saying that's what happened. I don't want
No,
people to
sure.
think, that I'm immediately discounting this entire event. But these are the
Yeah.
conversations that need to be had when it comes to something like this.
Yeah.
And one I think the movie actually approached in a very smart way.
Yeah.
I really respect them for doing that.
I will say, I've been on this show quite a few times. I don't think we've gotten, at least with me, too nitty gritty into like certain real cases or anything like that, aside from things based on movies here and there. This is one of, and I've known you for at least 10 years at this point now, I think. This is one of those cases. This is one of the first ones where I'm just like, you know what? I don't really have an answer either way.
Yeah.
I know what I believe, but I don't. It's pretty wild.
Hmm.
It's something that it's like really interesting, and especially like like I don't know. This is one of those first times where I'm like,
Yeah, good. That's all I could ask of you, man,
that's all I
is to
got.
keep an
That's all I
open
got.
mind. Again,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love having you on the show because you are willing to hear me out and willing to like
Yeah,
hear what people
always.
see and experience and
Because
and think maybe it's possible. But
and
we have to look at all the other explanations first.
Yeah, and at the very least, even if I don't think that something was possible, I get like a. There's often a lot of very human, emotional stories attached to these things. There's a lot. That's why one of the many things that I love about your perspective, and that's one of the reasons that I like your work and like your investigations is in your investigations into these type of phenomena is that you're going for a human perspective. I said at the top too, like it's just that's the interesting part to me. And that I think what I love and what I love about this particular story is we still have that human aspect, and that makes me not more susceptible to like the UFOs, but like it makes me, like I said, I think it makes me want to believe them a little bit more.
Yeah, right.
So
I completely understand that. Again, I think, this movie did such a good job of humanizing these characters,
mm,
and that really has to do with the actors. They these were for a TV movie, these were top-notch
top notch. Yeah,
performances.
yeah.
They did their homework. They invested all of themselves into doing this accurately for the
Mm,
real Betty and Barney Hill. No matter what James Earl Jones or Estelle Parsons think of the case, they went into this movie saying, we need to tell the story according to what they believe, and that's your job as an
right.
actor. Like, you
Yep.
are that person. You're not, you're faking it, but you're not faking it.
Yeah.
You truly believe this happened to you, so you got to go into it that way. And I just think they did, oh God, such an incredible job. I have to really praise the director, the writers, and the actors on this. This was my first time seeing the movie,
Hmm.
actually. Having never watched it before, as soon as I thought about it, I was like, I got to get Andrew in on this. I got to see what he thinks of this. A, as a
Thank you.
movie, and B, as a credible UFO case. Credible being a very flexible word, but
Hey, no, look again.
yeah,
I think this is. I would recommend this movie. I would recommend this case. I think there's just a lot. There's a lot to it that I think is really interesting.
yeah. We
So
only
yeah,
unpacked a short amount of it. But
sure.
listen, my man, we're gonna wrap things up very shortly. Now I am become death said, Andrew, if there's a case you really want to look into, it's the Ariel school incident. Andrew, I'm gonna have the director of this new documentary coming on the show in a couple weeks. This was a
Mhm.
case in Rua, Zimbabwe in '94, where 62 school children witnessed a UFO land on their school ground. Beings come out and try to communicate with the children, get back in their craft, disappear. Um, I've spoken to several of the witnesses to this event. As adults, they stick to this story. It's incredible. And we're finally, after like a decade of waiting for this documentary to come out, we're finally getting it in the next week or so. So I would love to like have
Whoa.
you watch that and come back on and talk about that. But again,
Sure.
like, there's so many cases out there that people don't know about, that don't really think about the UFO topic, that I really just want to be like, look at this and tell me something didn't happen.
Right.
Something.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that's true about the Betty and Barney Hill case as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, my man, before we go, I have to ask you, as a screenwriter, is there anything you can tease about projects you're working on, or maybe a little
Sure.
movie that someone is having made? I don't know if that's public yet, but yeah,
No, yeah,
anything
I
you
think
can
that's
tease
yeah.
about?
Well, there. First of all, if there's anybody watching that's in New York City or is in New York City adjacent, this Wednesday at QED in Queens, and then this Friday at Duplex in off the Christopher Street stop of the one train. I work with
You're
this.
getting so hyper local. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Like it's just the easy because I'm not
I
sure
love
what
it.
all the areas always get renamed all the time. I basically I work with this theater company called Random Access Theater and they do a series called The Drunk Texts, which is
Mhm.
where we take classical texts or current texts made classical, and we translate and we have some drinks, play some drinking games, and do a staged reading of them. And I've adapted several movies for them, where I did Ghostbusters and Halloween and also A New Hope, and now Empire Strikes Back. And New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are both going up this week. May
Nice.
4th is at QED in Queens. at 11:30 p.m. That one I will not be in attendance. But the Friday one, if you come to see Empire Strikes Back at the Duplex, I will be playing Han Solo, and you do get to see me in a wig. And come on by. I Am Become Death. They're fun shows. We play drinking games, and I'll be playing Han Solo for the Empire Strikes Back one. Called The Empire Doth Protest. So there's that. There's I didn't even tell you about this, but there's no, I won't say that one because it's not confirmed yet. And then we'll talk about it later. But I have a short film that'll hopefully be dropping this year called Pay the Tithe, which is a horror short that I'm very excited about. We're heavy into post-production right now. I got to hear some of the first bits of the score yesterday, which was done by a good friend of Ryan and I's, and very, very excited. I'm excited for everybody to see it. I'm excited for just all the work. Anybody I have had involved on the short so far has just brought every bit of themselves and every bit of their A game to it, and just so much passion and hard work and creativity, and it's going to make it even better than I could have imagined. So it's very exciting, and I wrote and directed it, so it's a nice little passion project.
Amazing. I did get to see a rough cut, and man, I'm not just saying it because you're my friend and my colleague, but I was blown away by what I saw. So I can't wait to see the final product. We'll have to get you back on to talk about it because it dives into some of the realms we cover here on the show. A little bit of supernatural, maybe. We won't go too much into the
personality kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll definitely talk about that.
Awesome.
Ooh, yes. Now I Become Death says sounds interesting being a fan of horror. So you got a new fan.
Hey, thanks, man. You can follow me on the tweeters at Sanford -Sun, right underneath there. Also the
there we go.
Yeah. And my Instagram is Half White Son of a Black Man, which was the name of a pod for a while. So if you want to, if anybody, Ryan was on that quite a few times on that podcast, and several of the times were to come on and talk about horror movies with me. So if you want to hear me and Ryan, I think you could fill up a solid 24 hours if you went and found all the times Ryan and I have talked about movies via podcasts. So we should
do a megasode where we just put them all together. That'd be pretty fun.
Okay.
No, that was such a fun time. So definitely I suggest people go check out Half White Son of a Black Man archives.
The Shocktober episodes.
Yeah,
or you can listen to the other stuff too, but if you're looking for the movie conversations, it's on Stitcher too, which I've always had. They have and I only say that because if you have Stitcher, they have a really good search engine, so you can
find it
easy to find stuff. Yeah,
for sure, man. God bless Stitcher. I'm glad they're still going strong in the age of Spotify.
Hey, man, they get my money.
Apple.
Stitcher gets my money.
They're great. And they host our show as well. So thank you.
That's where I get the show.
Somewhere in the Stitcher. Love it. Love it. All right, my man. Well, hey, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to talk shop a little bit with the crowd here, but I do want to thank you for taking time out of your crazy, hectic life, both as an artist and as a father and a husband. And please give my family your best, and we will definitely talk soon.
Doug, you got my best there? Thank you, Doug. You said give my family your best, which I'm doing if Doug is still in the chat. Or you said it doesn't matter. Anyway, buddy, I love you so much.
Your family.
Yep, yeah. Thank you. That was a dumb what an awful note to go out. I could have said nothing. I could have completely.
Who are you, George Costanza?
Jesus. Come on. Anyway, what a ruin. Nobody has to follow me. I just ruined everything. I love you, bud. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, my man. We will talk soon. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining and listening and fun stuff. Yeah.
All right, thanks. There he is, guys. Andrew Sanford, one of my best friends here in New York City. We've seen and done a lot of things, and it's so amazing that we can still connect, in our adult lives and do stuff like this. The podcast is just an excuse to catch up with my buddies here in New York. So thank you to Andrew for taking time to do that tonight. We really appreciate it. My best to your family, Douglas Frick says. Steven says, thank you for the review. Thank you. Thank you guys for checking this out tonight. If you haven't, you can watch the UFO incident from 1975 right on YouTube. Just type in the UFO incident 1975 and it should pop up. I know that's how Andrew and I watched it. And let us know what you think. Put your comments below on this video about what you thought of the movie, what you thought they did a good job with, maybe not so much with, and yeah, what you think of the Betty and Barney Hill case. Now, I know we touched on some controversial aspects tonight, and the idea that maybe this isn't all it seems to be or appears to be. But hey, it's an open case, as every UFO case usually is. So yeah, I'm glad we got to dissect that tonight. I'm glad that you guys got to hang out with us and do that. But before we go, I do want to talk a little about this. This was a comic book called Blue Book, based on the Project Blue Book files and other UFO incidents. And we actually had Michael Oyming, the artist of this comic book about the Betty and Barney Hill incident, on the show. So if you go back into the archives, you should be able to find that episode with Michael Oyming, where we talk all about the Betty and Barney Hill incident and what inspired him to make this comic book series with a few other friends and colleagues of his. And you can find it at readbluebook.com. The entire Betty and Barney Hill volume is done and out to the public. So go to readbluebook.com. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous comic book. And I know I just talked to Michael. They're working on the next case. And they actually reached out to me to help consult on the next volume. So I'm super excited and honored about that too. But yeah, definitely check out this comic. They did such an incredible job with researching it and really conveying what Betty and Barney Hill went through, just like the movie The UFO Incident did as well. Titus and Layla are listening. Douglas Sprague says, those are my dogs, my family dogs back home. Please give them my best, Dad. Mick Gray says, you kicking in NYC, brah? Yes, I live in NYC, actually. So yeah, that's how Andrew and I met here in New York City in the theater world. And we've just become such good friends since then. So much that he comes on this show as a skeptic and takes everyone's hits. So I love him for that as well. Comics are dope. I agree. And last but not least, we have a new episode premiering in just a couple hours, guys, of Somewhere in the Skies. It is another volume of Witness Accounts, volume 19. We're almost up to 20 volumes of witness accounts. And if you're not familiar with the podcast, this is a series that I do where I'm not even in these episodes. This is you listeners and viewers of Somewhere in the Skies, come on and tell your UFO stories. And we had a really interesting collection of different stories for this volume that you're going to hear tomorrow. It is available right now in early edition for Patreon subscribers. So if you do want to become a Patreon member, you can do that at patreon.com/somewhere skies. And with that, you get early editions of the podcast. You get bonus content and a lot of other cool stuff. We're going to do Patreon hangouts where we just hop on and talk to one another all about UFOs. But yes, new episode premiering tonight or this morning, wherever you are in the world, of Witness Accounts. We go to outside of London to hear an incredible story of a UFO. We go to the Highlands of Scotland to hear several different UFO stories from a gentleman in Scotland. And all across the United States as well. We're going to hear stories of spherical objects following fighter jets. And what else? We got a really interesting triangular UFO sighting that two brothers had in their home in, I believe it was Texas. So yeah, very powerful episode. I hope you will check it out. You can get the podcast wherever you get podcasts. And speaking of that, please, if you haven't, rate and review the show wherever you get podcasts. I know Spotify now has a rating system, so you can rate it on there. Apple Podcasts is still the biggest platform to find podcasts and support independent podcasters like myself. So please go to Apple and give it a 5-star rating, a review, or give it an honest rating and review. I don't care. But yeah, please just head on over to one of those avenues and do that. It truly, truly does help the show. Other than that, let me see what we have here in the chat before we get out of here. Steven says they need to turn the splash page into a poster. Absolutely. He's talking about the Project Blue Book comic book. It's so good. So good. Let's see. Mark says, forgot to mention how much I like my Tic Tac Attack and Foo Fighter shirts I ordered from your store. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, my man. I'll show it one more time. Oh, we've got right here this incredible mug. I'll go full screen for this. The Tic Tac Attack mug by Ben Scarborough is in the shop as well. I know it's a little blurry. So yeah, I got some really, really cool designs in the store. I think I just released a new one actually, maybe a week or so ago. So you can check that out as well. It's a really cool blacked out document, redacted document, as many of the UFO documents are that come out of the government. So yeah, you can check that out in the store now. We have sales all the time. So yeah, you can check those out. I think t-shirts are usually 35% off when the sales do happen. So go to tpublic.com. You can check out all our merch and help support the show in style. Let's see. Oh, Mark says, and your coffee blend. Mark, you're like my publicist, man. You're repping all of my merch tonight. Yes, I do have a coffee as well, the Somewhere in the Skies coffee, which is available through blacktrianglecoffee.com. So go check them out as well. Amazing roaster out of Arizona. And yeah, let me know what you think of the Somewhere in the Skies coffee. Let's see. Robert says, great show. Thank you. Cool merch. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the super chats and super stickers tonight as well. I really appreciate that, guys. Any support for the show goes right back in to the show as well to keep it going and keep it running. There's so many unforeseen costs that go with doing a free show every week. So that's what the Patreon and our merch store and all that stuff is for as well. So yeah, if you haven't, click like on this video, subscribe, do all that. I'm done talking shop and promoting. That's all I got. So thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight to explore the Betty and Barney Hill incident. We will go into it further in depth in the future, maybe do a full episode on it, and finally just cover this case in the way it truly deserves. But again, thank you to our guest, Andrew Sanford, for tonight. Thank you to all of you for being here. And with that, I'm going to give you our little Patreon promo here and say goodnight. So thank you, guys. Keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies. Take care. Hey, guys. Ryan here. The Somewhere in the Skies podcast is a labor of love every week. And with that comes many different costs to keep the show running. That's where our Patreon campaign comes in. You give what you think the show is worth. There's different rewards available all the time, including shoutouts on the show, early editions of main episodes, bonus episodes and content, and very soon, monthly patron hangouts, where we sit back and chat all things UFOs. So I hope you'll consider becoming a Patreon subscriber today. To learn more and to join, visit patreon.com/somewhereskies. Thank you for your support and keep looking up.